difficulties, but I believe we are now streaming. So I will go ahead and call to order our Greater Albany Public Schools Board of Directors meeting on Monday. Oh my gosh, I believe we are January. Oh, I'm hearing myself. That was strange. On Monday, January 25th at 7:06 p.m. And if you all join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chris. And I think, yes, we have everyone back. All right. So going into board business, we have, make sure I'm leading here. For those of you joining on Board Book, I will pull this up and you can follow along if you so choose. We have a proclamation we would like to start with, and I will go ahead and read this. This is a proclamation recognizing Black History Month for the Greater Albany Public School Board of Education. And I will go through and read this aloud. Whereas in 1915, Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson, noted Black scholar and son of enslaved parents, founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History and initiated Black History Week on February 12, 1926. And whereas Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by Black Americans to Oregon and the United States economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by Black Americans to Oregon and the United States economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas Black History Month is a time for all Americans to remember the stories, teachings, sufferings, and struggles of African Americans who gave a voice to the daily struggles for freedom, equality, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And whereas we can't ignore nor erase the consequences of our country's and our state's long, cruel, and oppressive history of violence, of discrimination, and of deprivation of the African Americans, but we can commit to working together for a bright future. And whereas because of their determination, hard work, intelligence, and perseverance, Black Americans have made valuable and lasting contributions to Albany, the state of Oregon, and the United States, achieving exceptional success in all aspects of society, including business, education, politics, science, and the arts. And whereas the school board supports providing opportunities for our Black American students to partner and celebrate their cultures. And whereas our community is strengthened by the support and advocacy from organizations like the NAACP, Albany Student Advocacy Project, Lynn Benton Community College, and the City of Albany Human Relations Commission. And whereas during Black History Month, we focus on the crucial role of education in the history of Black Americans. And now, therefore, the Greater Albany Public School Board of Directors proclaims February 1st through February 28th, 2021 to be the Black History Month, and encourages our staff and community to observe, recognize, and celebrate the culture, heritage, and contributions of Black Americans to our country, our state, our cities, and our schools. Adopted, trying to get to this, I apologize. This 25th day of January 2021. Yay. All right. And then I'm moving on to another proclamation under our board business. And if anybody has any comments or questions, just a reminder to go ahead and pop in on Board Book and put your hands up. Our second proclamation tonight is recognizing National School Counseling Week for the Greater Albany Public School Board of Education. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively, Superintendent Goff, did you have a question?
Not till after you're done.
Okay, I apologize. Okay, I will start over. Proclamation recognizing National School Counseling Week for Greater Albany Public School Board of Education. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children. And whereas school counselors work with teachers and their educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves. And whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance the complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Greater Albany Public School Board of Education proclaim February 1st through 5th, 2021 as National School Counseling Week, adopted this 25th day of January 2021. Superintendent Goff.
Yes, I just wanted to speak to both proclamations and thank the board for making those statements. I have the privilege of meeting with parents of our Black students about once a month, and I know how much they value the board's support of their children and making more opportunities available to their children, and the board's commitment to disrupting barriers in their students' education. So thank you for reading that proclamation. And for our counselors, I just simply cannot say enough of the very heavy load that our counselors carry. As you know, we don't have counselors in all of our buildings. And so the counselors that we do have are not only providing support to their schools, but they're also providing coaching and supports to other schools as well. Their work is phenomenal and has been critical, especially during the pandemic. So thank you for that recognition.
All right, thank you. That concludes our board business. So we are on to committee, community, and school presentations. And our first thing on our agenda for this is the Welcome Center report.
So Chair Butzner, members of the board, if you'll recall at our last school board meeting, we were going to have their Welcome Center give a report. And so they have graciously just come back again to give us their report. And I will turn it over to Heather Huzefka, who's a familiar face to you all. She's our federal programs coordinator and is the person who supports and supervises all of the great work at the Welcome Center, which you all know is a fantastic team of professionals that help us with interpretation, translation, support to schools, support to families, outreach, and is really kind of a jewel for us here in Albany. And it's often used as an example throughout the state of how things could look and should look in school districts in terms of supporting families. So Heather, go ahead and take it away.
And I'm going to interrupt Heather and just say, and truly, the Welcome Center and FACT teams are should be equally supported with our counselors during this recognition week. The work that they do is that equivalent and make sure that all students are included. It's essential. So I just want to say thanks to you guys you're going to rock the presentation.
Well, thank you both. That's a great introduction for us three. I'm Heather Hughes-Efka, work at the District Office, Federal Programs Administrator. I don't know if I'm supposed to show anything. We do have a PowerPoint within the board packet, so I'm just going to leave it there and not try and do anything fancy. Eric, you're smiling at me about that. I see. I saw that. It's okay. But on our first slide, it does state something that we as a Welcome Center team believe in, and we wanted to share that with everyone, that we believe all individuals have value and are worth investing in, that equal access builds parent-school partnerships, inclusion strengthens our system, and diversity is an asset. And in essence, it's really, we believe in building bridges, and that's the work that this amazing team does. Two of our members are here. First is David Hasmin. He is our district and parent community liaison. And just David, if you can share just a piece of your history here in the district.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather. Ladies and gentlemen, my name, as mentioned, David Hasmin. I work here at the Welcome Center. This is my 5th year now here. I started with GAPS in 2010. I was a bilingual assistant at Memorial Middle School. And 5 years after that, there was a position that opened up at the Welcome Center. I applied, got it, and have been here and look forward to the future.
Thanks, David. We also have Patricia Martinez, who is one of our 2 district translator interpreter leads. And Patricia, if you can share a little bit about your history with us.
Yeah, thank you. Buenas noches a todos. My name is Patricia Martinez. I actually was hired as a part-time bilingual assistant in 2008, position that I never actually worked, as a bilingual assistant because they hired me for translations. Through the years, the school district create different positions. I was designated translator, district translator in 2009. In 2012, translator number 2, coordinating more bigger responsibilities. I think in 2016, I was working as a consultant, and in 2020, I come back as employee for the school district. I saw the Welcome Center grow with new positions, new responsibilities, and it's been wonderful since then.
If you ever want to know really the journey, just set up a time with Patricia, because she has been here since the beginning to truly see and be a key part of the growth of the Welcome Center. Not with us tonight is Rosilio Francisco. She is the other lead translator interpreter in our district and the ELL program secretary. She supports that program. Leonor Chavez is also not with us. She's our Welcome Center secretary. She's our Juntos program assistant, our parent-child classes that we have, and our migrant education liaison. Tara Dixon is also part of this team, although she tends to present with fact due to her McKinney-Vento foster care work. But both programs, both supports, as you mentioned, work a lot together because of the families that we're serving and supporting. So we did include a slide in the beginning just to kind of let you know when things started. And there were just a few people. There were not the teams that we have now. And it was to provide parents a way to connect and for us to provide a safe place for parents to talk with us. The space, it was a modular by Kalapuya Middle School in that great open area. It was really funded out of ELL and Title I funds, some Medicaid reimbursement, and we had limited translation within the district. We didn't have the system we have now. And Patricia, can you just give us an example of what it did look like? You were hired as a bilingual assistant, but you quickly were brought on to do translations just for kind of at the district level, right?
Yes. Yeah, like the idea was to hire somebody who only take care of translation, thinking that it's going to be a part-time position. Pretty quick, we realized that this is not going to be a part-time position. They create a translation position. We start thinking as a process. I remember my first bilingual assistant training was 8 people in the training. For me, as a Latina, it was wonderful to see with other co-workers only speaking Spanish sometimes. It was just, it was very, very interesting experience. Now we have more than 30 bilingual assistants, in between bilingual assistants, and actually not too long ago, we just hired 2 tech people, bilingual tech in the school district. So like I say, I saw this, the whole process, and it was very, very good for me to be part of how we learn with everybody. At the beginning was like, okay, we have 8 people, but how we know the levels of the Spanish? Let's go, try a test. Let's see because everybody has a different levels of bilingualism. Writing and reading or interpreting is a different skill. So
that has grown considerably. That is part of like where we're at now. So the 15 years later, we have developed, with Patricia taking the lead, a process to vet staff to get a sense of where their skill level is at with interpretations and translations. Because those of us as administrators could meet somebody and could hear that, yes, they speak Spanish, but not speaking Spanish, I don't know what level they're at. And so that has been one of the things 15 years later. I see Kim, I don't know, somebody brought it up. Thank you. That we have actually this district family and community liaison position with David. We have bilingual SEAs in almost all of our buildings. I think we're shy by about 5 buildings. Those do not have EL programs in them, so we have focused our supports in the other buildings, but that has grown considerably across the district. We partner with LBCC and contract with them to provide instructors for our Juntos pre-kinder program. This is a parent-child or child caregiver and child play and learn program that we've put on for many years, and we always have a waiting list. We have like the FACT team and the school district nurses and Tara right there, like we're all together next to AOS, our Albany Options High School. And so to go from this one little modular with Patricia being hired, but starting to take translations and a few bilingual staff throughout the district, it has just really blossomed in 15 years, and we continue to see the growth need that we have. One of the main focus points that we are about is translation interpretation services for staff to communicate and connect with their students, parents, and families. And so Patricia, if you want to take a minute or so and just share a little bit about what that looks like and the different types of things we have been developing over the years.
Translations, interpretation services now are providing in the 14 schools, but the translation of the biggest documents as handbooks, or right now we're working in this big project with policies and updating legal documents, special ed documents. Those are the documents that we take care at the Welcome Center. We provide interpretation services for forums, meetings, district-wide, but we train people. We train bilingual assistants in other buildings so they can provide their own services to their buildings. The vetting process that we talk, it was very interesting, as Heather says, well, this person's last name is Martinez, so this person speaks Spanish. Well, we don't know, because my husband Martinez too. And how is the level of everybody in that? It was something that we we were taking care of since the beginning. Now we have a process, we have an oral and writing test for our bilingual applicants. And in 2010, we contract language line services. So we can provide those services for other language besides Spanish. So we have 14 languages in our school district right now. And we provide those services to parents, because what we need to understand is that we teach English to students, and probably the students, their English level is good enough to communicate with teachers and peers. But what we need to serve is those parents that are looking for that connection, so they can be our partners when we educate their kids. So I think that's,
that's great. One example of the vetting process or discovering, the bilingual level, we have found over the years, people have said, yes, I speak Spanish, and the Welcome Center will start with kind of a screening phone call. They will begin in English and then ask if they can move to Spanish and begin, interacting and conversing in Spanish. And we have found quite a few people who go, well, actually, my Spanish, I'm not at that level yet. And so we're able to encourage them to get on our sub list, to look for other positions. We want conversational Spanish as well. But that's a good example. We've just introduced a lot. David, I just want to focus on the family outreach and engagement, and then I'm going to wrap it up with just a few comments about Migrant Ed and ELL. So David, if you want to share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. As you can see, that's presented there. Part of the outreach that we have within the communities, establishing and maintaining partnerships. One of the image that you have there, as seen there, was in the 1920 school year. We had an event where we had over 130 attendees. We hosted a college night with LBCC, and this was just to help with underrepresented families, again, students that were trying to pursue that community college instead of going to a four-year university. It was nice to have testimonials from students that had gone through gaps, and also having more of a resources for students moving on or looking into attending LBCC. Pretty nice turnout for the event there. Definitely put faces or smiles on faces, and just taking advantage again of what is in our community. The following one, or the next one, HAC, Hispanic Advisory Committee, Superintendent Goff actually and I will be attending this month's meeting on Wednesday and presenting there. It's a group of committee of different individuals within the community of Albany and Corvallis that meet monthly, and again, just networking, sharing resources and things to help the families within the communities. Some of the other things that we have had over the course of time are the monthly coffee hours, and these are our parent meetings for specific to what the needs are within the community. It can vary anything from know your rights to obtaining driver's license, to getting supports with what families are inquiring about. And we try to hold the meetings to where it's a morning presentation known as coffee hour, and then the evening compas, and that stands for the community outreach meetings for parents and schools. Something new this year with the pandemic, we have actually become a resource ourselves. A lot of the videos, a lot of the wellness videos that we have done, we're actually voicing over those. So it's been neat learning that, taking that on, and now having, if you go to our YouTube page, I believe there's over 24 videos that have been translated that you could find in English and Spanish. So, kudos to the team, and it's just a privilege to be a part of this team to continue working on that. Again, different events that we hold throughout the year. We hope that, with the pandemic moving on, we can probably go back to our normal, whatever that is, and start having more involvement with the community, and definitely look forward to having more of these events.
Thank you, David. The final two pieces that I won't spend as much time on is we do have Migrant Ed Support for families who qualify, and we work with the Willamette ESD, and we receive some additional funding to support those families specifically with items or information they need. Leonor Chavez does lead that work. And then our ELL program support, Roselia, there's all the technical pieces, but we certainly want to support and grow our English language development program and what those families need. And so there's a connection there with Jessica Dion. The ELL TOSA is also, her office is with the Welcome Center. Many more things we could share at another time. And when you guys are able to get out and take tours, please call, and we'd love to show you our space. But we're open for any questions if you have them. And if not, we'll also just wish you a very good night. So Lisa, I used my wait time, but not too long because you guys have a long night. So
I do have a few folks, so I'm going to call on those that had raised question or raised their hands. So Director Ward, yours went up and down, so I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry, no. I really just wanted to briefly give thanks to Heather and David and Patricia for coming tonight. I don't know if David remembers this, but one of the first things I did when I was elected is went over to the Welcome Center, and I walked in and I said, I keep hearing about this Welcome Center, please tell me what it's all about. And he graciously sat down and told me about the wonderful work that was happening. And I just feel like we've had turnover on the board, and that's why I think it's been so great for you to come tonight. And I hope that we'll continue to hear from you so that we are all aware of what a tremendous resource you are to our Latin community.
thank you.
Thank you. And Director Roach.
Back in 2015, I think I was tasked with a project of creating summer opportunities for about 250 of our most underserved students in GAPS. And I would not have been able to do any of that work without Patricia and Roselia and the FAC team. They are really the bridge to our families in the community, and the way that they've built trust and the way that they've built relationships. I'm just thrilled at how you've grown over the last 6 years, and I can't wait to come see it again. Mm-hmm. You are so important to this district, and so I just really want to applaud you and thank you for everything that you're doing.
Okay, I do see you, Superintendent Goff. But I had Director Aganaga put his hand up ahead of you, so I'm going to start with him. Okay, so Director Aganaga.
Just thank you so much to all of you. You know, heavy is the head that wears a crown, and your guys' crown is heavy. The work you do is amazing. David, I knew what your job was without knowing the title, because people go up to you and they're like, this guy knows stuff. If you need connections in the district, this guy knows where to go. And Heather, your office does great working with like Boys and Girls Club and Jackson Street. I've said on some of those meetings, I have to make sure what hat I wear. I can't speak for the school. So just thank you so much for reaching out. You know, we're not waiting for kids to come to us. We're going to them. So much appreciation. Muchas gracias.
And Superintendent Goff.
I apologize, Director Aganaga. I couldn't find the raise hand feature, so I just wanted to make sure we didn't move on. I just want to say thank you to the entire team as well. As many of you know, well, most of you know, so last year we spent our entire time in strategic planning, and one of the focus groups we really wanted to hear from are Spanish-speaking families. And we had several different opportunities to engage with them. I actually think the best one that we had, the most effective one we had, was hosted at AOS with a group of families who brought their kids, and we just broke bread together and had a conversation. And part of that conversation was, you know, we'll know we can trust you when you continue to show up. We've had these conversations before, but we really need to see that it's meaningful to you. I would like to thank this team for helping me continue to show up for that community, even during COVID. So we have had a number of forum. When we've had our family forums, we hold them also in Spanish. And I don't speak Spanish, so although Assistant Superintendent Harlan does, but neither of us to the extent where we can get into the technical language that we cover with our families. And we certainly don't have the relationships that our folks within the Welcome Center have with our families. So we've started a protocol, and this was the Welcome Center's idea, to actually have Spanish-speaking EAs and the Welcome Center call our Spanish-speaking families before we have those forums to make sure that they know that they're happening and invite them. And we had this last time, we had over 40 families show up for that meeting in Spanish this last week. And this was a very important meeting for me to be able to hear their voices, and they shared their thinking. And it was, for me, it just makes me a better leader for all of our kids. And I couldn't do it without you all. And thank you so much. And thank you for your compassion with me as I give you stuff at way too late when you need to translate it. So thank you.
Well, I will just say thank you again to everyone for allowing us this opportunity to share a piece of what happens. It is a joyous thing that we feel like we get to do, connecting with families, supporting staff, and connecting with families. And yes, Eric, I do believe that our Welcome Center has a reputation in the district now, that when parents and people move in, the word of mouth, we get families just calling cold or off the street where to start. And we appreciate having that opportunity to do it, because it's because of you and the board and Superintendent Goff, you supporting us, that we're able to. So thank you. I think with that, we're going to wave goodbye, team, right? We're going to
Thank you all very much. Okay, so it looks like we did have a few other folks join for our next one, which is our auditor report. And I have also pulled that up in board book for our directors to follow along. And I'm assuming I'm turning this one over to Director Larry, but is that accurate, or is someone else taking it? No, he's like, no, not me. Who's starting this one?
I'd like to introduce our controller, Ashley Netzel, who will take over this part of the presentation.
Thank you, Melissa. Chair Butzner, members of the board, each year the district is required to engage with an independent firm to conduct an audit of our financials. This year we contracted with a new firm, Grove, Mueller & Swank, and we have Larry Grant here to present our financial statements to you and to answer any questions, or I can answer questions at the end as well. So Larry.
I think I'm unmuted now. All right. Well, thank you everyone for having me here tonight. I'm happy to report that the audit went very well. That's mostly due to Ashley's hard work. I know changing audit firms is it's like saying, bring it on, because it's a lot of work to change. And I don't think we were very easy on her. So she was doing her normal job, and then we piled a lot of stuff on top of that. So thanks to her for making that go well. I'm assuming that you've all had a chance to take a look at the PDF of the audit report. Is that true? Okay, I just wanted to walk you through a couple things. Number one, the management's discussion and analysis is on page 9 to 14. That's really important, I think, for you all to read. It kind of summarizes what's going on with the financial statements, and I think it gives a good background for everybody. I wanted to go through our opinion real quickly. And I think the only people I don't know that I do know in this meeting is Ashley and Jim. So, hi, Jim. So the audit report on page 6 talks about the responsibility of management and the auditor's responsibilities. So these are management's financial statements, and our job is to express opinions on those. So, and this opinion is very similar to last year's opinion, and we basically are expressing an unmodified opinion on the major funds and aggregate remaining fund information. However, the governmental activities, the government-wide financial statements have what we call a qualified opinion, because there's a couple of things that are missing that are material, in our opinion. Our opinion is qualified because of the absence of those two liabilities. So we can talk more about that in a minute. So essentially, the statements that you rely on for a year-to-year management of the business of the district, those are fairly stated. That's what our opinion says. The government-wide statements that begin on page 15, you'll notice that there is, I guess it's not on the statement here. I guess as it is. There's a liability early retirement stipends. There's an estimate that's on here. That, and then there's a implicit subsidy for medical that is not on this a liability of the district that is not stated on this statement of net position. So those two things are required to have an actuarial evaluation that the district has chosen not to do at this point. So I wanted to also take you to the very end of the report. Page 103 is a summary of the audit results, which basically starts with the financial statements, the type of auditor's report issued. It talks about, it's a qualified opinion, which we just talked about a little bit. There were no material weaknesses identified. There were no significant deficiencies. There is non-compliance material to the financial statements, which essentially is the leaving out of those two liabilities or not getting the actuarial studies done. What that does to you is it makes us say no to the auditee qualified as a low-risk auditee. We have to say no there because of this finding. And so that will always require a little bit more work for the single audit, which is the audit of the federal funds that the district, that passes through the district from the Department of Education mostly. You'll always have to, as long as that is a qualified opinion, you will always have more work required. You're going to have to audit more programs for the single audit. There was a continuing finding on so that's the 2020-001 is the finding related to the financial statements that we spoke of that created the qualified opinion. There's also a continuing finding from 2019, which is back on page 105, very last page, and then another finding in the single audit under the handicapped IDEA special ed. It's a very similar finding to the 2019 finding related to some payroll costs for people who had been transferred from the program that didn't get moved along with their salaries. So there was some residual charges there, I believe. Ashley can give you more details about that. Also, up a few pages, there's our page 94 is the auditor's report required by Oregon state regulations. That report shows at the bottom there's a couple of items that we mentioned. One is that there were some over expenditures of appropriations, and also that there were a few funds with deficit fund balances that hadn't been taken care of yet. So those were all of the findings related to the audit. Other than that, everything's good. One other thing I wanted to mention, besides expressing our appreciation for all of Ashley's hard work to help us through this, Teresa Rollins, my audit manager, that was the principal contact along with Ashley. She was had planned to be here tonight, but was unable to attend because of her. She wasn't feeling well tonight. So just wanted to mention that she was planning to be here and would have done a much better job leading you through this. But I'm open to questions now if anybody has questions.
Are there any board director questions? Superintendent Goff, go ahead.
I just had a quick question on the finding near the end about the separation of the moving of the individual, but not their benefits, correct?
Right.
Did you, is that function a function within our financial department, or within, Ashley will know this answer, probably not you, Larry, but within our financial department, or is that a function within their HR department?
So what happened on this particular one is, and yes, it's kind of, there's some HR things and stuff too, that sometimes when people are moved out of there, they forget to grab their supplemental or their stipend, and it doesn't get moved with the position. So that happens sometimes. In this particular case, I believe what happened was we did move it. However, the system, when it automatically generated the journal entry, it didn't pick up all the benefit pieces. So it moved the pay line and it moved some of the benefit pieces, but it did not pick up all of it. So in the future, going through those, I'm going to need to review those journal entries a little bit closer in respect, because I honestly didn't realize the system wasn't picking the whole thing up. I see the journal entry, I saw all of it, you know, and it did pick pieces of it up, but not the full dollar amount. So I'm not sure. And that's one thing we'll email Tyler about too, and ask them why it did that on those.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Dr. Ward.
Hey, thanks, Ashley, and thanks, Larry. And pardon me if I don't use the right terminology because this isn't my area of expertise. But and Ashley, maybe it's you. Can you speak to why GAPS has not gotten that actuarial evaluation? Why we've chosen not to, and if we plan to in the future?
If I remember correctly, because it's been several years that this requirement has been out there and that we've been having the opinion that we have. It was working with Polly Rogers and Russ and the board members at the time. I don't believe very many of you are the same anymore since then. The cost of the value of the actuarial evaluation didn't seem to be something that was necessary, that they wanted to spend the money on compared to the amount of dollars so we opted for the several years to take the opinion that we're getting versus spending the money on the valuation.
Right, that sounds familiar, and I just wanted to make sure we were still tracking the same thing. Thank you.
Any other board member questions? I think we all very much appreciate all of the hard work from everyone. I know that Ashley had to nudge me a few times on some things as well. So we appreciate her keeping us all in check for getting everything done that needed to for this. So it is a lot of work. So thank you for that. All right. I don't see any additional questions. So you guys are also off the hook at this point.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on in our agenda, we are to our superintendent comments. And so take it away, Superintendent Goff.
All right, thank you, Chair Butzner. And I appreciate this opportunity to share with you the decision that I believe is the best path to take for us as a district regarding reopening to in-person hybrid, remembering that we are already open to limited in-person and have students on campus. I'm going to open with a quote from one of our 6th grade students, a letter I just received today, which I appreciated a great deal. And I think it captures how many of us are feeling as we consider this situation. It makes me so mad, just the thought of everything going on with every school. It is like a horror movie trapped inside a nightmare that is only not a nightmare, but real. And to that student, I want to just acknowledge how she's feeling and certainly let her know that that encapsulates how I feel as I'm walking through this moment as well over these many months in trying to make decisions about when can we actually move to the hybrid in person and how are we making that decision. Her heartfelt message was well-timed for me and certainly helped me, of course, as always, go back to the reasons we're doing things are about students. So I'm going to read to you tonight my decision, and what I would ask of the board is that following what I read, you ask me questions that you need answers to. We have Rachel Smith in the waiting room so that she can answer any medical related questions that you may have. And then my hope would be that the board is able to express support for this plan as we move forward to support our students. Let me have a little water. Several areas of focus have absorbed my time in recent months as I have worked with our district teams to inform ourselves and reach a decision regarding when to expand our in-person learning beyond limited in-person instruction to include on-site hybrid learning. We have focused first on safety for our students and staff. We have followed science and paid attention to what the scientists understand about COVID-19 and its variants and how they have changed over time. We have listened to a diverse group of stakeholders, considering their voices and finding how to represent their wishes and address their concerns in our final decision. We have considered equity in this decision, including impacts of decisions on multi-generational families, scientific data indicating groups who are more vulnerable to the virus, including certain racial groups. We have considered the needs of our students in poverty and whether CDL is meeting their needs. Finally, we have thought about our partners at Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA and the need for partnership to continue so students may have the supports provided by these service groups in our community. Ultimately, to arrive at this decision, I have listened to the voices of students, of their families, and of our staff. This decision has been one that has constantly occupied my mind over the last several months, weighing the risks of opening against the risks of continuing in distance learning only. We have circumstances before us over which we do not have control. One of those is the need for vaccinations. It has become increasingly clear that vaccinations are one of the essential keys for us to move beyond the lockdowns we've experienced during COVID. When I talk about lockdowns, I don't only mean related to school, but I also mean the socialization that is so important for our community. We know that vaccines are a critical component that we cannot overlook as we wish to have our students and staff back in the safest environment possible. Access to the vaccines, however, have been extremely challenging here in Linn County. For example, last week, Linn County Public Health informed us that the state of Oregon received 0 doses of the vaccine. I was heartened to learn from the governor's office this weekend that they have confirmed 700 doses of the vaccine will be delivered to Linn County educators next week. That progress is laudable, as it will allow 25% of our staff in Linn County to have their first dose of the vaccine. We have, however, 2,800 educators who need to be vaccinated across the districts in Linn County. So as we look at 700 doses, we know we are quite a ways away from getting all of our staff fully covered. Remember, everyone needs to have 2 doses of the vaccine, and the second dose is 3 or 4 weeks after the first dose. In any way that we look at it, time is not our friend in being able to return students and staff in the safest manner to schools. Another issue that we have discussed is the challenge with coverage for our insurance. Since the newest release of information in the Oregon Department of Education Ready School Safe Learners, we know that we are covered through PACE and through the government PrEP coverage. Given this situation, I believe our plan would fit in the acceptable risk category, and I recommend we move forward based on the considerations we've made. I've heard from both students and their families, and also from teachers, concerns about the mental and emotional wellness of students the longer that they only have the option to learn at home. This is concerning and something we have an obligation to address. The decision that we are making today will include opportunities for and expectations that students across grade levels have opportunities to return to school for some sort of limited in-person instruction. These opportunities would be especially focused on students who need the social and emotional supports that are provided by interactions with peers and staff. This is also a priority, especially for our secondary schools, as we find that our students are not only missing their academics, they are of course also missing their clubs, activities, and sports opportunities. Though any decision tonight does not alter in any way the Oregon Sports and Activities Association guidelines, it certainly opens up opportunities for coaches to establish team building opportunities on site with students. Further, I challenge our high school leadership students who do such a great job to begin hosting virtual connection events for students. Using creativity, there is much we may begin to do together to improve the feeling of togetherness and connection among our students. Unfortunately, we still have some unknowns. We do not know the virulence of the new variants, although more information seems to have been made available today. We do not know how quickly Linn and Benton counties will be able to move themselves out of the orange zones and into the yellow or green zone. We do not know if OSAA will be changing any of the rules around athletics and activities. We do know it won't be tied to our decision to enter back into school. There is no easy, nor is there a perfect answer for this situation. However, there is a decision that we can make that prioritizes safety for students, both physically and emotionally. And that decision is to ensure that they return to school with all of the safety precautions that we are able to take put in place. It also means that we provide opportunities for them, if they're struggling, to have those interactions and enrichments that they need in order to overcome the social emotional challenges they may be feeling. School will begin School will begin for in-person learning in Greater Albany Public Schools in the hybrid model on March 29th. That is the day after spring break. This begins the transition for all schools leading up to middle and high schools beginning at the start of their fourth quarter. This timeline allows for staff who want to be vaccinated to become fully vaccinated. It also holds with it, however, the expectation that staff return regardless of where we are within the safety zones of green, yellow, orange, or red, as indicated by the Ready School Safe Learners and the Oregon Department of Education. We have written an MOU. It was actually presented to us by our union partners on Friday. We came to an agreement around the terms to have staff return on March 29th, regardless of where we are within the zones. We had teachers voted on that today with over 90% of the teachers voting in favor of that MOU. We have yet to know the outcome of the classified vote. We know that in Lynn and Benton counties, we've been waiting for months and months to have 2 weeks in a row where we actually, quote, meet the metrics. For months, I've been saying that. Let's see if we meet the metrics. It is exhausting to the community to hear that repeated. It is certainly exhausting to me and our staff to not really have a date where we know we can open. If we were to wait until we met the metrics in the yellow zone, which is the time where all 3 levels of learning could begin to slowly go back to school, it is unlikely that those 2 weeks would come prior to the end of spring break because we are yet still so deep in the orange zone. Given that reality, it is important to measure the risk ratio against the benefit. And when we do that, we see that the risk in the metrics categories is worth taking if we already have staff who are fully vaccinated. We also have a commitment to have students get to school and be able to stay in school as long as possible. We know that using this model, we have a much greater chance of school beginning for in-person hybrid and staying in in-person hybrid through the remainder of the year. I know that this decision is not what many in this community are hoping to hear. And for that, I want you to know that I truly heard your voice, and I hope you can hear your voices in the plans that we have around expanding limited in-person instruction. I hope you hear your voices in the understanding that we will return, even if we're still in the orange or the red zone, after we ensure that people are safe. I hope you can hear your voices when I say to you that our students will be able to spend the spring together through their rites of passage, including graduation, as they plan for their next steps after the school year. The last caveat that I will leave with the board and with our community is that all of this is dependent upon no major changes in the state of Oregon and expectations regarding schools and opening. At this time, I do believe we're in a place that we can safely make this decision and see it through. And yet we know we have had rather significant pivots occur after we've already had plans in place. And so we are mindful and want to make sure that the community and that you board members understand that there could be an interruption to this plan if the state made such a shift. And that is all that I have for you regarding that matter.
All right. Thank you, Melissa, for reading that for us. I'm sure there are probably some board member questions or comments. So I'm going to open that up at this point. No one. Director Ward, go ahead.
I know I threw this on them last time. If they're willing, I really would like to hear LJ's and Esperanza's response.
Do either one of you want to start? Oh, I see LJ's. Thank you.
Yeah, I think my response is bigger than that. I have a lot of sources, so I can cover it when my report comes up.
Okay.
I really don't have much to say rather than the fact of I'm so thankful to like Melissa Goff right now. Like you've done so much, and I can't imagine being in the position that you are in right now when there's no good and like perfect thing to do and everyone's gonna be happy within that situation. And I feel like you're just constantly trying to make everyone happy. And I know that a lot of people are just pushing their frustrations and like, hey, like my kid can't get back to school and it's your fault. Like, I hope you know that like some people out there are saying that you're putting so much effort in to do the right thing for both the students and the teachers and the parents, and you're trying to put everything out there, and sometimes it's not always going to work for everybody. and there's going to have to be some sacrifices, but I feel like you are doing what's best for everyone in the situation, and you're putting so much effort in this, and I really do see that, and I hope you know that people are seeing it. And within that, I feel like it's smart. Teachers need to be vaccinated, and I feel like that was something that not many people were paying attention to. And as soon as you figured out that's like, hey, like this is something that maybe we should figure out, you're on it. And it's just amazing to see that maybe like we can go back to school, and I have so many people that are like, hey, when is this happening? Hey, like, yeah, can we go back next week? And like they don't realize that it's a whole process and things need to happen. And I have 2 little brothers that are 4 and 7 right now that don't speak English, and they're trying to learn over a screen from 2 parents that didn't go to grade school. They worked their whole lives, so they can't help them. And it's just a whole frustration of not learning anything. And I feel like you're trying your best. And even through the dual language program at South Shore, which is something they hold dear to them, and I just like to give a shout out to that. That's how I learned English growing up. And it's just so many things are happening in our community, and everyone's coming together, and I feel like we're finally getting to a point to where maybe things will go back to normal, and hopefully, like, I'm not trying to jinx it, but it's just with that news, I know it's hard because it's a couple months away and everyone was getting their hopes up, but through this moment, it is what's best. And even I would feel more comfortable even going back to school at this point in time, which is something I want to do, so, like dearly in my heart. And I know plenty of people want to do, especially the younger kids that aren't learning anything right now. Like I know they're learning, but it is a struggle for them to fully comprehend everything going on, especially for the dual language kids right now. And with that, I'd like to end.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Esperanza.
Esperanza, thank you. You actually expressed a lot of what I want to express as well, which is, Superintendent Goff, you told us that, as you made this decision, that it would be well informed and that you would ask for feedback. And over the last 2 weeks, you have just been feeding us information, and you have gotten the data, and you have had the conversations both externally with our community in the forums, one-on-ones with the emails that I know we've all been getting this week, with people in the state to try to get a better handle on what's happening there. I'm really grateful to our county partners. I mean, Lynn County has just really stepped up and partnered with us to help us prioritize vaccinations for our teachers and to make that possible. And so you have done what you said that you would do. And so it's easy for me to support this decision because it is based in the facts and the reality and the understanding of the situation as very best as we can get it. And because you have taken the time to get the feedback from our community in so many different ways and to share that with us. I was very clear in our last meeting that, I was supportive of opening, going to hybrid model as soon as possible. But that's okay. This is solidly researched. It addresses the input that we've gotten from our community. Some of the concerns that I raised are being addressed by expanding our limited in-person offerings. And I think having a set deadline that we can put on our calendars and mostly count on, because we all know what the state, that things can shift with the state, but to have something that's realistic to shoot for is going to be a good thing.
Thank you, Director Ward. Director Roach, see your hand was raised.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to just echo what Director Ward just said, how much I appreciate the work that you've put into developing this. As I've gotten to know you, I'm seeing the stress that this is putting on you, trying to meet all the needs of our students and our community, and I don't envy you in that task. And so I really feel like you've done a really a thoughtful and caring job of outreach and communicating and listening. A little story that I'll get to the point in a second, but so many of you know my wife was diagnosed with cancer back in April. And since that point, we've spent about 100 nights in the hospital and various hospital rooms, emergency rooms, ICUs. Just a month and a half ago, we spent 4 nights in the ICU in Salem, and watching that staff put on their spacesuits to go see patients who are dying of COVID. Actually seeing, in the ICUs, they have those glass doors, so you could actually, we watched somebody pass away that week. And so I've had sort of this sneak peek on seeing the reality of COVID and what it's doing to families and what it's doing to the staff of these hospitals. And I will say we were there this week from Thursday and got back today up in Portland hospital, and watching the staff who had been vaccinated in that emergency room and the weight off their shoulders and their ability to really be there for the patient was different than we've seen since April. And that they're able to really provide the service that they're trained for, that they want to do and need to do to make sure that the patient has everything they need. And I know that will be the same for our staff who want to be there for our students. And so they're having the ability to be vaccinated, where they can have that comfort of being able to be there and meet all the needs that they need to do, that they're so good at doing, is going to be huge. So I applaud you for having the courage to make this decision. I will say I wish, I'm a little nervous about the sort of line in the sand and saying we're going to open this day, because with these variants, I'm very concerned, as we're seeing in some places around the world, that kids are dying of COVID. And so I'm nervous about that, but I have hope in our state leaders that they'll draw some lines for us as well. But I just wanted to let you know that I support you in this. I know that it's tough. I wandered into social media this week, which was a really poor decision, because there's some real vitriol for the work that we're trying to do here. And I don't want anyone who's listening to this meeting today to doubt that we care about the kids of Albany. And most of us have dedicated so many years and hours and blood, sweat, and tears to making sure that kids are safe. And so thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you, Director Rose. Director Thompson.
Yes, I just wanted to lend my support for this decision as well. I have to say, on these difficult decisions, at any level of local government, there's often, you hear policymakers go back to, well, I haven't been given all the information. I feel like I don't know enough. And I have to say, we have been, Melissa, Superintendent Goff has done an outstanding job of helping us see all the angles. Someone already mentioned this, so I don't want to repeat it, but we have seen all the input that you possibly can. So I have no questions as far as have I not heard enough? Have I not seen enough? And I also want to highlight the teachers' support for that time. As Director Roach noted and others noted, March 29th gives us time, but we don't always know. And they are they're meeting us, they're making compromise, I believe, by saying, okay, March 29th, we're coming in no matter what. And I think that's the way to go. Meet everyone, being willing to meet halfway or more than halfway. After our last meeting, I was just very skeptical about our ability to meet all the various protocols, the discussion of contact tracing. And so I'm just happy about, we are so close. And I think March 29th is just great to have that date out there, and I'm just fully in support of.
Thank you. I'll just share briefly. I appreciate everybody's commitment to this. It's been very exhausting, and agree with our, I believe it was Timber Ridge student who said, it is a nightmare. It is a, I don't know, sci-fi movie and a nightmare in reality. And that truly is how it feels. When we are in a position to have to make any decision when it's not the decision we all really want to make, is very challenging. And I just want to also remind everyone that even in our ability to go back to school, it is in a hybrid situation, which is also not, it's not full school. I've had the benefit of hearing from many high school parents in particular, in my circles, and some of the biggest challenges there. We hear the social aspect, we hear the extracurriculars, the activities, and again, those are not things necessarily that we control. Those, and even going back, keeping in mind our students are going to be in extremely small cohorts, not the same type of activities going on. You're going to be in a classroom with 15 people. Your learning and time is going to be less in some cases because of the fact that now it's being split out into how they have to teach, an in-class of 15, while others are still, now more days a week, maybe not seeing those teachers because they're now, having to teach the in-class cohorts instead of the ones that are out of class. So from the educational perspective, I believe this this is the right move. There's nothing that says our hearts don't get pulled. Our hearts are being pulled and tugged in every single direction. There isn't an email we get that we don't agree with, that we don't understand. And we still have to, unfortunately, make a decision that may or may not meet everyone's needs. And what we can do as a community is try very hard to, as the adults in the community, for one, staying as positive as we can and supporting in every aspect how we can get some of these other issues addressed in other ways, because that needs to be our focus when we can't have decisions for other things. So focusing on ways to get people together. I have to say, we want our kids back. We want our kids doing activities. We want our kids interacting with one another. We want our kids interacting with the teachers. I believe them being able to do their job as best they can as a whole is going to happen when they're vaccinated. But I also want people to understand going back even now or in March was not going to be going back to normal. And there's still going to be challenges with that. There's challenges if we end up having to transition back and forth, and how do we manage that dynamic for the parents and the families and the students. I had someone contact me while we were having this conversation and say, this just sucks. And it does. It sucks all the way around, and it doesn't matter which way we do it, there's going to be something that sucks about it. And And I know we're all sorry for that. We're all torn apart by that. We're doing the best we can to make the right decisions. We hear lots about nationwide things that are happening, places that are going back to school, places that have gone back to school and had to shut back down, places that feel like they're going to school and they haven't had to shut back down, that there's not an issue with, you know, kids typically passing this along. What we don't know is what we don't know, though, and that is, where are they passing it and how are things going? And we're falling behind other countries, so we're following what's happening other places where things are ahead of us to some degree. And again, we know not everybody agrees in the science, not everybody agrees with the social aspects, and what we've done here, and I believe that they've done well, is take into account our community, our people, listened to everyone and tried to make the best decision for here, right now, with what we have. And I do think that that's happening. It's just, you're right, nothing is ideal about this until we get the ability to get everybody back. And, you know, no one loves a global pandemic. Believe it or not, it is what we're living through right now. And so I just encourage people to stay positive. I encourage people to do the right things, you know, get out there, protect yourself, wear your mask, get people used to that, because when we do go back, that is going to be our norm when we go back. And the expectations are that those safety precautions are abided by, and that's going to be the best way for us to continue to keep our kids in schools and to get OSAA and some of these other agencies to allow us to get back to normal as quickly as possible. And I don't know, honestly, that everybody is doing that now. And so if the expectation is going to be that that's where we're going to be, and we really want our kids back in school, and we really want these activities to happen, we need people to, you know, support those protocols. So again, thank you for the work and effort that's gone into this so far. I know it's very, very challenging all the way around. So I think Director Aganaga put his hand up while I was speaking, so go for it. You next.
Thanks. Well, it's a decision I don't like, but I bet it's a decision none of us like. And those are the hardest decisions to make, is when you have to go against your own wishes. It's tough. It's a very tough thing for kids to hear. And I think everybody really got their hopes up this time. And I know you and your staff will do a great job at reaching out, because I think there probably needs to be a little extra love sent out. And I kind of look at the people in the room that are teachers, and I can see it in your eyes of disappointment, but kind of, we're going to do this. We're going to do it the right way. That's how we do things. So thank you for our staff. Parents, please understand, you know, we're all of us are parents of kids at GAPS. And even if they're not our kids, we go Mama Bear and Papa Bear all the time. Please understand, as soon as we can get them in, we will. That is our number one goal, I promise you.
Thank you, each of you. I really appreciate your comments. And yes, it is. This is an impossible decision that breaks your heart to make, and we will do our very best to take care of all of our students, and we want them back, and we want them back safely. And so this is the plan that we think can get them back most quickly in the safest possible way. And we're really excited to see them in schools. So thank you.
Okay, let's see. We have one more superintendent report. Did you have some things on your report? Do we want to do that before we take a quick break, or do you want to go ahead and do a quick break first and then come back to that?
I think I'll just highlight on the superintendent report the childcare that's being set up for staff for when we do go into hybrid and potentially before that time. So Heather Huzepka, who was just speaking, has worked extremely hard with our community partners to create opportunities for our staff to be able to be at their work site and have childcare provided to them through partnerships that we have. It's a very exciting piece that we're able to offer. We are looking at hiring education assistants and using our school improvement or excuse me, our School and Student Investment Act dollars to make that work. And if you have the opportunity to read through that in greater detail, I would really encourage you to do so, because I also think that's a sign of our support we're able to give to staff to reassure them as they return into the schools that we are taking care of them and we are taking care of the children that they have who are in school as well. And that really would be the bulk of my report, aside from the reopening update. So I think that we could just take a break and when we open back, be in the liaison reports.
And I'm just going to bleep in here and say I'm really glad you drew attention to that, because I was really excited to see that development. I'm very glad that we can offer that to our staff.
Agreed. It was very nice to see. All right. On that note, we'll go ahead and take a quick, let's say, is 10 minutes enough for us? 10-minute break. We'll come back at 8:35 and jump back into our agenda. Okay. Thank you, guys.
You.
Lisa had to run downstairs, do an M&M run.
I did the exact same thing. So, I had a little pile that would, save me through the meeting, but that's gone. It didn't last the break. So there you go.
Lisa, do you deliver?
I'm sorry, I don't. But when we are all back in person, Justin, I promise you will have enough and it will be okay.
Lisa, what I've been saving on gas money for going to work and back every day, I've been spending on peanut M&Ms.
I'm so sorry. I wish I had an influence that was more memorable than that, but they really
You started that dang habit. I literally
I think we are all back.
Yeah. It looks like, okay. All right. Thank you to everyone who might be watching for letting us take a quick break. So we are going to move into our regular board reports. And for starters, we had board liaison reports. We have our school board roles and committee liaisons. I think we had one change as at the last meeting. So this is just providing us with our most up-to-date list, and also wanted to know if anyone had any updates to provide. I know most of us haven't had much of an opportunity to be meeting on any of these just because of the current situations and priorities for both us and many of these other partner groups. But were there any at all? I didn't see. Okay. So we will work towards getting some of those meetings going as soon as possible or when we can to just kind of touch base with some of those folks. And we'll check in at our next meeting. Were there any other board comments or reports anyone had from the last couple weeks? Director Roach.
Thank you. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to Principal Gill at Meadow Ridge for taking me on an incredible tour of an absolutely beautiful building. And I am so jealous of these buildings after teaching for 15 years and seeing the resources and opportunities that these staff and kids are going to have. It's incredible. And so Principal Gill was a really gracious host and excellent tour guide.
I'm glad you got a chance to go out there. It's an amazing school building for sure. Any others? I am not seeing any, so we will go into our student board reports. And I think I'm going to do this right. Esperanza, I think you're up first this meeting.
Okay. So the first thing I would like to point out is we have a virtual study table. We have 9 tutors working one-on-one weekly with students, and it's also just to get extra support in classes and working on college and scholarship applications. Last week we had 20 sessions with students, which is an amazing thing, knowing that students are reaching out and being able to talk to their peers. And we made it to finals week. We're doing it. Okay. I mean, 2 people laugh, I think, with that one. I don't know how to say this right. So, Talanoa Hufenga, I hope that's close, who was this year's PAE 12, not gonna act like I know that, football defensive football player of the year at USC and has declared for the NFL draft, spoke to our leadership students at South over Zoom. And he just basically talked to them about setting goals and working to achieve them. They were able to ask him questions. It was just an overall amazing experience for them, being able to talk to this person that has accomplished so many different things. And he actually grew up in Albany. And it's just amazing to know that the people who come out of Albany are achieving amazing things. And for my peers and people that I know, I have very high hopes for and can't wait to see where they go. It's basically all that I have for like just general announcements. The only questions I'm really getting from students are, when are we going back to school? Are we going to school? Like what, just those general questions that I feel like are usually talked about during these meetings. Just another note, if you see me turn off my camera, it's because my grandma comes in to have me read stuff to her because she can't read in English. And then she comes in and talks to me a bunch of she doesn't like being on camera, and so I usually turn it off. But that's about it. No, that's all I have.
Thank you. I seem to see my screen has frozen up. Has anyone else? Are you hearing me, or is this just me?
We can hear you great.
Okay, I got you back. I got you guys all back. It was really weird. Every single one of you froze in a really weird, like, response to Esperanza telling us about her grandma coming in. So that was fun from my end for a second. So thank you for the update. I also just wanted to give kudos to Andy Wynn, who is one of the leadership teachers at South and was the one that coordinated having him attend some Zoom classes, and it's been really well received. And I can see when I see some of the posts about it that it's gone over really, really well. So kudos to him, and thank you for making that effort. Those are the kinds of things right now that I think make our online learning opportunities even better, when we can pull in some additional kind of fun things. So thank you for that. LJ, you are up.
Yes. First off, I'd just like to thank Superintendent Goff for all the work she's doing in getting us back into school. I know it's super stressful, so I'd just like to thank you for that. I actually had the opportunity to film, I don't know if you'd call it like a commercial type deal with some of my leadership peers about what like hybrid is going to be like, and like what the classrooms will look like, and walking down the hallways. And yes, it is different, but it's positive to see that this is a possibility, and it's going to be different, but it's good for students to be able to see that. That being said, since the last meeting, I have been reached out to and been reaching out to a lot of students, and most responses have been negative. There's a lot of upset students right now. Students that don't know what's going on when we're going back to school. They don't know why we have to wait so long. And a lot of those questions are being answered as we go on, which I thank Superintendent Goff for. But a lot of students are just losing motivation again. It feels like we're back at square one, beginning of the year all over again, especially with finals coming up and everything. There's a lot of backlash from students. And there's going to, but from both ways, the going to school side and not going to school side. And just a lot of that is coming out through social media right now, because that's how we communicate with each other. Our opinions, we put them out on social media, and then it simply starts fights, because there's always going to be backlash from both sides. And that isn't what we want, really. So I would like to propose the idea of a student forum. I know you guys do a forum for parents, but there's a lot that we students have to say, and a lot that we want to know. And I feel like a lot of students feel like they're not being heard personally. They feel like they're being heard through a filter of their parents. Their parents don't know how they really feel. So I think that would be a super cool thing to have for students to come on, and they would I think that would settle a lot of feelings that students have about going back to school, because they'll be able to be told to their faces that this is why we have to wait so long to go back to school, but we're working on it and it's coming along well. So that would be super cool to see. Another positive thing is we are having limited in person. I'm doing band rehearsals, and I know the football team and the soccer team are doing practices. One thing I like to point out for those is one question on the students has always been, are they going to follow the rules when they come back to school? And I know that's a big concern. And for that answer, I would say yes, the students are definitely going to follow the rules, because at every practice, every band rehearsal I've had, every limited in person, every student is wearing a mask. They answer all the questions truthfully, and they're distant, and they're obeying all the rules just simply because they are happy to be there. And if that's what it takes to be there, then they're willing to do it. I haven't seen a single person argue about the rules when they come. If you're going to argue about the rules, they just don't come, and that's positive to see on our end. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for today.
I think that the student forum idea is a great idea, LJ. And so I know finals is an issue, so we'll plan that out, and maybe we'll plan it the second week in February, so we get kind of a little bit further along with planning. You guys can finish your videos. I know that you guys are doing a video. I'm so excited about that. Thank you. And we're getting other videos done for different grade levels as well. And then we can just have kind of real talk with the kids about what are those things they have questions about, and we can answer those and then provide them some information on things they might not understand or coming into play. So I think that's a fantastic idea. Thank you.
Agreed. And as always, it's helpful for us to hear from our student board members. So we appreciate you guys taking some of that heat on, so to speak, because you're hearing from both sides and might also have your own personal opinions yourselves. And that's hard sometimes. And that's what we're all struggling with some, is how to really have the information to share. So I agree. I think it will be a great opportunity for us. Are there any other board comments before we move on? No. Okay. I'm going to turn this time over to Vice Chair Thompson, and he is going to review our comments from the public for this evening. I will pull those up in board book as well. Just a reminder, anyone wanting to submit comments right now while we're doing virtual meetings, we need those submitted by noon on the day of the meeting. And we will have a board member representative read those in their entirety. We do still have a 3-minute time limit. So if anything goes beyond that time frame, we will complete where we are in reviewing it. And then we will provide those in our board minutes for review in their entirety after the meeting. So take it away, Vice Chair Thompson.
Okay. Public comment number 1 from Stephanie Cox, Albany, Oregon 97322. Dear GAP School Board, I'm writing as a teacher in this district urging you to consider keeping school virtual until staff members, all adults who work in the school, have a chance to become vaccinated with both doses. While the district has a safety plan in place, it does not address the countless parents who will send their child to school with obvious symptoms or while awaiting a COVID test result for a member of their family. Any employee of a school will tell you parents send their children to school, sick every day of the year. In our own district, a high school student knowingly exposed her teammates and friends to COVID after attending several activities after receiving a positive COVID test. If school was in session, what would have stopped her from attending school and affecting her classmates? Currently, middle school students have many opportunities for electives and teacher help with the virtual schedule. Transitioning into hybrid puts all of the elective programs in jeopardy, as well as office hours. Teachers will simply not have the time during our contracted day to give personal attention to students like they're able to receive during virtual office hours for 2 hours every single student contract day. Transitioning into hybrid also allows for far more interruptions with quarantines. If we are online, family exposures do not interrupt the learning process for students. Valuable time has already been lost with the school closure in the spring and will be lost with hybrid. Keeping schools virtual until a vaccine can be distributed allows for a smooth and engaged learning environment. Much of the discussion around hybrid schools focused on the students, while hardly any discussion includes the interests of the teachers. Please keep our own health and the health of our families in your minds by keeping schools virtual until a vaccine is able to be distributed among the staff of each school. Thank you for your time. Public comment number 2, Deidre Cleve, Tangent, Oregon, 97389. I would like to start by thanking you for taking the time to hear my concerns and comments. I have a second grader at Tangent Elementary. He has adjusted well to the distant learning. He currently receives 5 hours a day, 4 days a week of instruction from his teacher. When looking at the plans for in-person schooling, I am concerned that he will lose 2 hours of teacher-led instruction each day. In the rush to get children back into in-person learning, is it the thought that the 3 hours of in-person is equivalent or better than the 5 hours he receives now? As a working parent, is it expected that I will make up the difference? My other concern is that I'm in a multi-generational home. My son's grandmother watches him when I need to work. She gets him on and off the bus for me. She is 76 years old. I feel like we are so close to doing things right, and we are rushing to put our kids in school at the risk of others. How would I explain to my child if he passed on COVID to her? He understands how serious that would be. By waiting just a few more weeks for our teachers and elderly to be vaccinated, I feel should be a priority. My final comment stems that a parent can choose to remain in distant learning. That is not always an easy choice. Many working parents have relied on qualifying for OFLA. However, those protections are lost once school is open and the parent chooses not to send their child to school. Many parents will be deciding between endangering their high-risk family member and grandparents or possibly losing their job. Thank you for your time and consideration. Public comment number 3, Mary Har, Albany, Oregon, 97321. Dear board, my name is Mary Har, I'm not sure. I'm a parent of West Albany High School student, a senior student. I'm curious where we stand with this. And I believe she's quoting from the paper. Quote, while the move from the case metrics being mandatory to advisory is a monumental shift, we believe we can meet the February 15th date, if not earlier, for hybrid learning to resume due to our prior preparations. We have daily schedules established for K-12 for those students who return in person, and students will continue to have the option to remain in distance learning, unquote. I see that 76.5% of teachers are not comfortable returning to school. With the vaccination, protective gear, in parentheses, mask, shield, hand sanitizer, distancing, nurses and doctors are able to continue their jobs. Why do teachers get a choice? It is their job to teach. Let's get them back to teaching after they have their vaccinations and are provided with the protective gear that they will need. This has been a long road, and you, of course, know this long journey better than anyone. I would very much welcome your comments on where we stand on the February 15th target start date. I look forward to your comments. And public comment number 4, Kristen Zybart, Albany, Oregon, 97321. As a parent of 2 West Albany High School students, I urge the board and the superintendent to take immediate action to reopen schools. It is safe to open schools now in accordance with the Ready Schools, Safe Learners guidance provided by the state. To claim otherwise suggests willful ignorance of the facts. Many peer-reviewed research publications now exist to demonstrate the safety of in-person school, provided that mitigation measures are applied properly. Careful analysis of many schools throughout the world indicate low levels of viral transmission in school, levels that are lower than the surrounding community. A large study of North Carolina schools reported 0 instances of student-to-adult transmission. In addition, much evidence also exists to demonstrate the appalling extent of child suffering due to school closures. Thus far, the district doesn't seem to have any sense of urgency to reopen schools. Sadly, I see excuses, pessimism, and a perpetuation of fear narratives. What a contrast to what I see happening in Ben Lapine. Delaying the reopening of schools by 1 more day is unconscionable. And also, let's be honest about the disproportionate suffering of the most vulnerable and underserved children due to comprehensive distance learning. Keeping schools closed does not reflect the district's commitment to equity. We must evaluate risk on both sides of this equation in an honest way. Quite simply, it is far more dangerous to maintain school closures because many children are not safe at home, and schools are not high-risk environments for SARS-CoV-2 transmission. I call on the district leaders to communicate honestly with the community and GAP staff on this issue, to withhold pertinent information about the high degree of safety of in-person schooling, to underemphasize the very real, severe, and ongoing harms that children are suffering, impedes our community's ability to move forward on this important issue. Regarding the student survey results, if 30% of West Albany students and 27% of South Albany students report a desire to remain in comprehensive distance learning, let's find out why. Are there legitimate health issues that make them or a family member vulnerable to severe COVID-19 outcomes? Or is it due to the irrational fear narratives they see in social media? What if their superintendent could reassure them that every mechanism to limit transmission will be implemented? What if they understood the true COVID-19 risk is extremely minimal for healthy children? What if they knew that many other schools and daycares in Oregon, including Linn and Benton counties, have been operating safely and successfully for many months? What if they knew their classmates are at a severe risk of domestic abuse, suicide, or drug overdose because of the school closures? What if they knew that absolutely nothing in life is quote unquote completely safe, and we must always manage risk in a responsible, thoughtful manner? I fully support parents' choice to keep their child at home. They have options to pursue. I fully support accommodating and protecting staff who are at a high risk to COVID-19. However, students who desperately need to be in school have no option right now other than to keep suffering. Please listen to the 70% of high school students who do want to go back to school. Please listen to the teachers who want to teach in person. Please have courage and take action now. Please, no more unnecessary delays. And that was all the comments we had.
Thank you for reading those. All right. We are into our consent agenda. And the first thing we have on there was our personnel report, and then we have our monthly financial report. Just verifying, was there any additional comments or questions from any of the board members or district staff? No? Okay, so we will pass our consent agenda items. And moving on to our old business, we have the Sodexo contract. And I think, Jim, you're taking this one.
That's me.
Yes.
So this is Sodexo, the food service contract. It's old business because you talked about it in December 14th meeting. You had a discussion of renewing the contract or bringing it in-house or taking some other option. The staff recommendation, which is attached to this item on the in the board book at the time, and is still the recommendation, is that we go ahead with renewal this year and look at any other options in the following year. And the reason for that is, number one, next year is the last year we can renew under the essentially a 5-year agreement. So we have to go out the next year anyway. And secondly, that we just don't have the bandwidth with the current uncertainties from COVID and the staff uncertainties at this point to look at this at the current time. There is a recommendation that's slightly different for what you do tonight. And it's basically the recommendation is to not take any action. And the reason for that is that this is a unique contract under the state requirements. We have to do, first of all, a lot of data has to be given to the state. And secondly, we have to do an evaluation of the provider every year. And all of that has to go to the state and be approved before a recommendation is brought to you to renew the contract. So the recommendation is to do nothing right now, but to expect that in a few months, we'll be bringing a renewal request to the board after it gets approved by the state.
Okay. Oh, let's see. Director Aganaga.
Good evening, Jim. Thank you for updating us. So Sodexo is required to do a self-evaluation every year. And looking back, I couldn't find this year's or last year's. I could only find the previous years where they only graded themselves a 50%. Do you know where this year's or last year's might be?
No, but I will find out.
Thank you, sir. Sorry to pop that question on you. It hit my head as you were talking about it.
No. If you want it, that you just ask.
Okay, so we have, Director Roach, go ahead. Oh, unmute.
Thank you. I almost got a whole sentence out, but I stopped myself. Can I make a motion at this point?
Yes, I was actually just going to say, so we actually do have an action request by staff for this topic, but didn't know if there was any other questions or comments. And then we will entertain a motion for this particular action.
I can certainly wait if there's more comments.
I didn't see any others yet. I see you shaking your head, so I think you're good.
Okay, and I may need some help with the wording of this one. So
if you're following on board book, I have it right up.
So I'd like to make a motion that we take no action at this time. That staff would bring a recommended 1-year contract renewal documents for approval in February or March.
Yep, that's great. So we have a motion on the table where staff recommends that school board take no action at this time and that staff will bring recommended 1-year contract renewal documents for approval in February or March. Director Roach.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Director Ward.
Aye.
LJ.
Aye.
And Esperanza.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so that one passes unanimously, and we will look forward to our 1-year contract renewal in February or March, and I'm assuming we will have continued conversations about what things may look like going forward, and I know that's kind of our goal, is to see what other options and things we might have out there available to us. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Next on our list here is the school bus replacement on old business. And I see that Russ has joined us. Welcome. Are there any additional questions, comments from board directors from the last time we saw this item?
No, just I'm really going to put my saber in the background of my Zooms now, as that's really cool that Russ did that. It's just out of frame.
I can see it. Okay. Really quickly before we move into this, I just wanted to acknowledge that Superintendent Goff had to excuse herself from the remainder of the meeting. And so Assistant Superintendent Harlan has kind of taken over that. So she gives her apologies, but she needed to step away for the evening. And so this is one also we will entertain a motion for. Director Aganaga.
I make a motion to approve the purchase of 4 school buses in the amount of $528,085 as presented.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to approve the purchase of 4 school buses in the amount of $528,085 as presented. Director Roach.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson. Oh, try.
Aye.
There we go. We gotcha. Director Ward.
Aye.
LJ. And Esperanza.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so that one will pass unanimously as well. Thank you, Russ. Have a good evening. Okay, so we have no reports, so we're on to our bond business. I see David McKay has joined. Are you by yourself tonight, David?
Doug is, for the board report, I'm by myself. Doug will be on for the 2020 CFU closeout and sunrise.
Great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the bond report for December. And you can take it away.
Great. Because your meeting is long tonight, I thought maybe I could do an abbreviated end of month report for you, saving maybe 10 minutes of time. If that's okay. I do want to direct you to 2 sections though. And that is
Here. Hand me that.
On page 5 of 71. I believe that's the way you like it, Kim, is my page numbers, or do you want your page number? You're muted, Kim.
I am. I said your page numbers are perfect. Yes, thank you.
So you'll notice that we have 2 notes here. And the first one is the single asterisk. And that is that on the previous reports, if you were to go to the previous reports, the bond proceeds were previously presented as net of issuance cost. In other words, what we were reporting for the bond proceeds was the net that the district received. During the audit, Grove, Mueller, and Swank requested that the issuance costs not be netted against revenue, but recorded as a separate expenditure. And so that's why you'll see that the values, the financial data has gone up. And you'll see it on the next report, which is the following. So you see unallocated overhead costs. We have a single asterisk after it. And those unallocated overhead costs have increased because now we're showing those bond issuance costs as part of that. The net is, there's no change, but that's what they've asked us to do. And so that's the change that we made this month. And then the other is the double asterisks is a critical facility upgrades. That number is changed and it shows, and that's because of the expected savings from the 2020 CFU projects. And if you go to the next page, which is 6 of 71, you'll see this reflected on that page. The change in the CFU projects we've increased the total project bond funds remaining by almost $1 million. So if you were to look at your November end of month report, we reported roughly about $3,240,000. This month, because of the savings as we're closing out the 2020, we've increased the amount of money remaining to $4,254,000.
David, we had a question or comment from Director Ward. I'm gonna.
Okay, great.
Hi, David, thanks. So yes, I was following all that, and I just want to make sure that I'm then drawing the correct conclusion, which is that that bottom line, that $4,250,000, then we, as things stand, we have that available then to put towards our priority 2 CFUs.
That is a true statement.
Thank you.
Yes, it was great news. I breathed and slept better that night when yeah, that was great news.
Great, thanks.
The other is, I just want to point out that both of these reports were reports that Russ was doing. With Russ gone, we're currently doing them, and then when your new person's hired that replaces Russ in his financial position, then we'll turn this back over to them to do. But right now, because of consistency of continuing to report, we're doing those for you. Okay. Again, to try to save time, do any of you have any questions specific to the end of month report I could answer?
I'm not seeing any yet.
Okay.
And I think we're good.
All right, great.
So we want to move on to the West Albany change order request 18.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a normal, for a major project, this is a normal monthly change order. Again, the change order is in essence a collection device that collects all the PCOs or proposed change order or proposed request, a proposal request, those that have been completed. So each of those are an individual specific scope of work. Once those have been completed, then we collect those into a change order and then amend the contract value to the contractor with that single change order each month. And so change order 18, we've listed and we've reported, given you a brief narrative for each of those. I don't know if anyone has any questions specific to those PCOs that are listed.
The only comment I had was and I think I read this correctly, but I want to just make sure at the very end of the document, well, I don't know if it's the end of the initial letter, says the contingency was changed by $34,000. So I'm assuming that this all fell within the budget with the exception of that $34,000 being pulled from our contingency. Is that what that means?
Yeah, basically, yes. What that means is that there was in the budget, we have a category for permits, and we basically had zeroed out that category because we couldn't foresee any additional permits. And there was an additional permit that came, which was $34,000. So we had to deduct that from the contingency value. So if you were to look at your November end of month report, you would see that we were reporting a number, it was roughly $566,000 in the contingency prior to the change order. And I wanted to do is just note that so that if you were comparing to the previous, you wouldn't say, well, gee, what happened there? There's $34,000 difference. And so that's what we're trying to say to you. It is it is being covered by contingency, and that's why we've decreased it. And just for the essence of transparency with you.
Thank you. And everything else falls within the normal
Yes.
already. Okay. Are there any other questions from directors? No? Okay. And I'm assuming, is this one you needed action for tonight, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we will open this up to a motion.
I move to award change order 018 to Girding Builders in the amount of $126,603.94.
So we have a motion on the table to award change order 018 for Girding Builders in the amount of $126,603.94. Director Roach.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Director Ward.
Aye.
LJ.
Aye.
And Esperanza.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so we have approved that change order unanimously, and we will move on to change order number 19.
Great, thank you. So change order 19 is for the CAT tax, the corporate activity tax. This is for Girding Builders Contract. I've given you some reports previously of some positions I was taking as the CAT tax came into effect January 1st of 2020. And we are of, and then we did a set aside of a potential of, remember, $500,000 that we set aside for the CAT tax. If when we work through this all, that the district did have a liability for it. We're recommending that the district approve this change order. It is, the change order is specific only to the CAT tax. And really, in a nutshell, the reason we believe that it is owed to Girding is this, is that in our contract, we state that if the contractor could foresee, or if they knew at bid time that they were going to be responsible for a tax, it couldn't be added later. But because the contract date was prior to this legislation being signed by the governor and enacted, there was no way they could foresee that. So therefore, in fairness, we believe that they are due this amount. In addition, we worked very hard to negotiate this because the CAT tax is at a 0.57%. And we've negotiated it down to 0.4 because of the way it's calculated. Working with some CPAs, we have developed that we think that 0.40 is fair. The one thing I don't know if a lot of people understand about the CAT tax is the CAT tax is a waterfall tax or a cascading tax. So not only do we pay it on Girding Builders unpaid contract value effective January 1st, 2020, but it's also then paid on every subcontractor and material suppliers unpaid contract values as of January 1st, 2020. We have worked with Girding on a process of substantiating when they release money to their subcontractors and material suppliers. We've asked them not to offer it to subcontractors, but only when subcontractors request it. And then there's a process for them to substantiate their payment of that CAT tax portion of that subcontractor's contract value to the contractor. And we'll do a reconciliation at the end. If they do not pay out all of the money, then that will be returned to the district as contingency. Any questions?
Just for clarification and my understanding, I guess, the the request is that a portion of that 500,000 be moved to the West Albany High School budget to cover. That is still for this tax purposes,
Yes,
but for just the West Albany project at this point. So that would leave us the remainder to utilize for West Albany's project later, or for all projects later?
For West Albany, because
Yes,
we've
okay.
denied it. We've denied it on the other projects. And I'll just give you an example. We had a change order from one of the roofing contractors, the roofing contractor for West Albany. He bid after the CAT tax was enacted. And then he sent us a change order for almost $20,000 at the end of West Albany saying we owed him CAT tax. And we said, no, we deny this, we reject the change because you knew the CAT tax was enacted. You should have included it in your bid. So West Albany was the only one that we foresaw that the district had a potential liability. And that's why we did that set aside. So the money remaining would be for West Albany High School.
And we think that that 500,000 overall will cover any of those requests that could potentially come in?
More than enough.
More than enough? Okay, thank you. Are there other board questions, board member questions? I'm not seeing any. Okay. So we will entertain a motion on this one as well.
I move to accept change order 019 for the Oregon corporate activity tax, moving $292,407 from the program budget to the West Albany High School budget.
So we have a motion on the table to accept change order 019 for the Oregon corporate activity tax, moving $292,407 from the program budget to the West Albany High School budget. Director Roach.
Can I just ask a real quick point of
Yeah.
clarification? Is it clear when you say West Albany High School budget that it's going to what it needs to go to? Does it need to be West Albany High School bond budget, or what? How does that work? Is my question making sense?
It's going to the project budget.
Project budget. So is that clear in the motion that it's that it's not just going to Susie Osborne or in her school budget?
I think we can alter that motion to say the motion on the table is to accept change order 019 for the Oregon corporate activity tax, moving $292,407 from the program bond budget to the West Albany High School bond budget.
Okay, and I can support that.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Director Ward.
Aye.
LJ.
Aye.
And Esperanza. I also vote aye. Again, passes unanimously. And that will take us into our critical facility closeout. Doug, are you taking this one?
I'm going to start.
You're going to start. Okay.
Doug's going to be my color commentator. So we'll see how well we do with play-by-play here. I like reporting when projects are under budget. I'm sure everybody appreciates that and can sympathize with me. But the 2020 critical facility upgrade projects that we did, the fire alarms at Liberty and Waverly, the fire doors at Liberty, Lafayette, South Albany High, the roofing at Liberty, Waverly, South Albany, and West Albany High School, Liberty Mechanical, Liberty Restrooms. So what was that? About 11 projects. Right now, we are certain that we will be a little less than $1 million under budget. That primarily has come from the roofing projects. And that was because, like I state, that in the previous years, we had a lot of unforeseen conditions, a lot of dry rot. And so we were budgeting based upon what we had learned from the previous years. And we just didn't find that this year. And so those savings are returning, as we talked earlier, to be able to do more CFU projects later. The summer 21 projects bid, so far those that have bid have been within budget, with the exception of Sunrise Mechanical Project. And unfortunately, we're the bid is $635,000 over budget. This is the most complicated elementary mechanical project we've done. We used, as I've stated here, we used the history from the Waverly self-perform project in 2018, from Liberty's project last year, and to be able to price it. Liberty did, we were able to revise that budget, so we were able to deliver it within the budget. But Sunrise, which is very complicated, and we've decided we need to change the plan, is over budget. Changing the plan is that originally Doug and his team, who are very capable, were going to do a significant portion of that work. And what we learned after Liberty is that is a really heavy load on the facilities department with everything else that they're committed to doing. And as we finish Liberty this year, and I'll let Doug provide some commentation here, we just felt it was too great of a burden to put on them with the projects they needed. And so therefore we bid it so that all the work would be done by the contractor. Doug, is there anything you want to share in regards to kind of the change of our plan?
Yeah. Other than the fact that I agree with the assessment, it's an unfortunate situation that we're in. Waverly was the smallest of the projects. Liberty was the middle of the road as far as scope. Sunrise being the largest scope. And again, it pulled from the entire bond bandwidth for upwards of 6 months. We started as soon as budget was available, and worked on into the school year to complete our components of that. And so it's at some point you have to recognize when you're overtaxing your team, and we have been successful on the majority of our self-performed CFU projects. Our team has done a great job, but I think this one would push them past their bandwidth and their ability to successfully produce the product that we're looking for.
We never like seeing a project bid greater than budget. I mean, we work hard to try to establish realistic budgets that we can deliver projects at. We took, I lay out here many of the things that we did. Afterwards, we did kind of a post-mortem and really tried to understand what happened. And I've listed 5 bullets there. I'm not going to read them off, but all of those, I think, have contributed to the fact that the cost is higher than the budget. In regards to this project, is this a project that you could delay? It really isn't. You've got Doug, you can talk about the system, but you have an antiquated end-of-life steam heat system. I think there's a combination of steam and hot water. The problem with steam is that it has over time it degrades the piping system, and so then you start having significant failures, and you start having to do those repairs. The work that we're going to do is going to do a couple of things. It can reduce energy costs, and it's going to improve indoor air quality. So I don't mean to say this as a cliche, but it really is the right thing to do to bring that school up like we've done for Waverly and Liberty. So our recommendation is that you would award this contract, and then after doing that, there would still be $365,000 of the $1 million that we talked about earlier and to Jennifer's question, that can go to those priority 2 projects.
Okay. Director Ward, I know you had your hand up, so go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So I think you may have answered the question, David, but again, I just want to make sure I'm coming to the right conclusion, which is that 2/3 of this $1 million savings that we had is going to be eaten up by this single project.
Yes.
And I guess I just want assurance that that's where we want to put our money, as opposed to working more on the list of other CFU priorities that we have.
I'll let Doug answer that because he lives in, with the systems.
We've taken, meaning me personally, have taken a very long, hard look at this and weighed the pros and cons and the other, high priority items, medium, we've dealt with our high priorities. This is one of the last, remembering that Sunrise, we started out with the fire doors, the restrooms, the plumbing, and worked our way through Waverly and then subsequently Liberty. But if you evaluate, if we were looking at the one that pops right into my head is North Albany Middle School, is fairly high on my priority list of other items. And right now we have classroom ventilators on the list for that building, but it also has older equipment in that building that, if you were to ask me if I had $600,000, where would I suggest we use those funds? That would be where I would be pointing. But I would not put North Albany Middle School's condition of units higher than the need that Sunrise has. Okay. Sunrise is definitely worse. And I think I've even heard Director Roach somewhat eloquently share his firsthand experience with some of the conditions over there. And our team does the very best that they can. And right now we have spent weeks at that building, making sure that the ventilation and filtration that is needed for staff to enter that building is there. But it has taken a lot of work, and we've invested dollars into that building that otherwise we wouldn't be.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. I just wanted to make sure, maybe Jim, this might be a question for you, or David, or a combination of the two. Is this appropriate for us to just move these funds, where we're being asked to just move funds from one project to be allocated to another?
From my perspective of managing your bond budget, because the CFU is a self-contained budget,
correct,
then it has 300 projects that we, move the money, it is appropriate to do what we're doing.
So it's just within that same
silo of money projects, yeah.
And we're 100% sure we're at a place where we know for a fact that's the amount that would be returned. We're completely done with everything else to the extent of, okay.
Yes.
I think just from a legal perspective, you're the board and you can choose to reallocate the funds as long as it's within the restriction of the bond, the bonds put on you, and then to answer for that. And I think in this case, it's wholly appropriate because you're not even really moving it out of the category that it was in. You're just funding it at the amount that it's required.
Okay.
So
thank you.
But you have more authority than that, even if that's what you want.
We have the power. I saw it. I saw
Yeah.
I saw Director Ward say it. Okay. Are there any other questions on this one? And it does look like we have a motion for this one, or no?
Yes.
I was just looking on our list and I don't see that we see one there.
It's the next one. It's K.5, is it not?
I don't know, is that? That's
Oh, no.
to
Oh, no.
award the contract, correct? Mechanical update project.
Our request is that the board award the 2021 Sunrise Elementary School Mechanical Upgrade Project to DSL Builders in the amount of not to exceed $829,000.
Okay. So we don't need to include anything about moving funds or anything. It's just the approval of the contract. Okay. So at this point, we will entertain a motion for this one.
Okay, I move to award the 2021 Sunrise Elementary School Mechanical Upgrade Project to DSL Builders for the not to exceed amount of $829,000.
So the motion on the table is to award the 2021 Sunrise Elementary School Mechanical Upgrade Project to DSL Builders for the not to exceed amount of $829,000. Director Roach.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Director Ward.
Aye.
LJ.
Aye.
And Esperanza.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so we are approved on this one as well. And I think that takes us to transportation facility contract for construction manager, general contractor. I think, David, you are still up on this one as well.
Yeah, Russ is not here, and I think that everything that usually had his name got my name somehow this week. If you remember last spring, Chambers was unable to sign the contract they had been awarded the CMGC contract. They were unable to sign the contract. Therefore, we released them, and then when you authorized moving this project forward, we immediately went out in December to select a new CMGC, a construction manager general contractor. We received 6 RFPs. We did a scoring of those, and Emmerich Construction is the company we chose that is the best selected contractor to do your project. Their profile, the projects they've done, they just demonstrated to us that we felt that they were the best firm to do the project. Their fee is 3.7%. It's extremely fair. It's on the low scale. It's not a concern, but it is a very fair fee. And we're asking the board to take action to award the CMGC contract, and in addition to authorize pre-construction services contract in the amount not to exceed $50,000. We want to engage them immediately. In fact, based upon the meeting tonight, we have a meeting tentatively set up for Wednesday as a kickoff meeting so that we can integrate them in and just have this project move forward so that we can hit that completion date that we're working towards of July 31st of 2022.
And that $50,000 is to engage in the design phase, or?
Yeah, in essence, so the pre-construction services, they're going to do a number of things for us. Number one is they'll do a construction document cost estimate. And we'll do then an independent cost estimate like we've done on all the projects. They will do value engineering to see if there's ways that we can reduce cost or find a better way of doing different products in that. They'll do a constructability review, which helps hopefully remove errors and omissions and ambiguities in the documents. They'll help us with phasing and putting that together, and then schedule and that. So that's what those services are. Those are normal and customary services that a CMGC provides.
And then we will have a future approval for the actual full bid price for the project.
What we call the guaranteed maximum price, or the GMP.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be bringing those to you to take action and award those. And with those, we'll have a budget update with you so that you're not only looking at the GMP, but you're looking at the total budget.
And when is that anticipated to be coming our way?
You know, everything I did to prepare that, I didn't look that date up. I can
Okay.
get a follow-up to Melissa, and she can get that to you with those key dates. What I'd like to do is wait till after our meeting on Wednesday just to confirm them with the team.
Okay. Are there other board questions at all? Talkie. So,
Sorry, just clarifying, you do need action on this tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry that I've got a number of things that I brought to you that I need action the first night. Sometimes the nature of projects, it just helps us. And so I try hard to get them 2 meetings for you, but it just seems like tonight that's the way it is.
Well, no, I know, and we had to cut some things out of our agenda last meeting, so okay.
And there are 2 motions associated with this one, if I recall correctly. There's one for the award of the contract, and then also the amount.
Yes.
For the pre-construction services.
That is correct.
So if there's no other questions or comments, we will entertain those motions as well.
I move to award the construction manager general contractor to Emmerich Construction Company.
So the first motion on the table is to award the CMGC contract to Emmerich Construction Company. Director Roach.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Director Ward.
Aye.
LJ.
Aye.
Esperanza.
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so that one passes unanimously.
And I move to authorize a pre-construction services contract in the amount not to exceed $50,000.
So the second motion on the table is to authorize a pre-construction services contract in the amount not to exceed $50,000. Director Roach.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Director Ward.
Aye.
LJ.
Aye.
And Esperanza.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so again passes unanimously. All right, we are on to the last one. David, you're up again.
This is an amendment to Glass's contract, and this is for repackaging the bidding packages for this project. When we were working with Chambers Construction last year, or this year, but last winter and spring, we developed a plan that we were going to have 3 bid packages. We need to repackage that, which is a considerable amount of work for not only Glass, but their design team. We've worked with him for a number of weeks on this, and we believe that it's a fair price that he's asking, that there really is additional work that this amount is deserving, not only for Glass, but for his mechanical and plumbing engineers, electrical engineer, structural engineer, and civil engineer.
Again, do you need this tonight, David?
My preference is yes, so that I can keep the project moving. If there was one that we would hold, this one would be the one, although they are working on doing this at this time, Jennifer. So if you'd like more time to consider it, it's just the timeline to be able to achieve the August 2022 means that we're having to move efficiently. And I'm not trying to, hold you hostage or force you, but it's just kind of that movement for us to hit that date for you.
So I confess I get a little nervous when I see scope creep like this early on in a project. Right? Because we're increasing the scope of what we're asking Glass to do. Isn't that how it's presented?
We're increasing their work because they're having to repackage the construction documents from 3 bid packages. And they're now repackaging those for this project, which is taking them into one package. So that is creating additional work for them. It's not just like, because there's all kinds of delineation and markups on the various packages that all needs to come together once and be coordinated. And so it is additional work for them.
So I'm going to just pose the question, are there other questions out there from other board members? And is this one that people would, just based on questions asked so far, would we be more comfortable just gathering a little bit more information on this one, having it come back as old business at our next meeting? Or are others feeling like they're ready to?
Here's what I'd appreciate, actually, and I don't know if it's David or Doug who does this. It would be helpful, at least to me, and I don't know if the rest of the board doesn't feel this way. It's been a little while since we've addressed the new facility, and just if just like a timeline of what needs to happen and when, just as a review would be helpful to me.
All right.
And David, is this within our normal budgeted amount for this, or is this, because I'm seeing the original contracted amount was 66,000.
663.
Yeah, and so we're looking at an increase up to 80 or adding 80.
We're adding $80,600. So this is $80,600 change. The first sentence of the letter.
Yeah, and this is work I heard you say, I think, that is already underway.
Yes.
So if we push this out, I guess the question is, are there any other options?
No, there's no way to reduce the price. This is, we worked hard to get it to this at this amount. So we're not going to reduce the price, and there really is no other options for not incurring this cost. It's an unfortunate circumstance or unintended consequence of Chambers not signing the contract, because we assembled the plans for the bidding documents based upon Chambers' input as the CMGC. When they were unable to or unwilling to sign the contract, it created a situation for gaps. And this is, in essence, the consequences of it.
And that becomes our liability?
It does, because I think that, we'd need to get legal counsel's review, but, based upon the way that they presented their inability to sign the contract, was a letter from their payment and performance bond company that refused to provide them a payment and performance bond for the project. So therefore, they couldn't provide that, and unless the contract was changed, and which was an unreasonable request on our part, but it does give them a legitimate out that's outside of their, control, let's say, because their bonding company was requiring it.
So, Chair Butzner, my recommendation at this point would be for the board to gather the questions that they might have, get an email both Mr. Scherzinger and Mr. McKay, Superintendent Goff as well, and then be able to collect some information and answer some questions to bring this back at the next board meeting.
I think so too, based on what we're seeing.
That I think having more time to be able to get the answers and have board members be able to ask those questions would be important to move forward.
Okay. Which is kind of where we were getting to. And it sounds like that's okay, David, as far as the timeline goes, although again, keep it in mind, the work is kind of already underway. So we just need to figure out, I think more than anything before we approve this, is it appropriate as a cost for us to incur versus someone else's cost to incur. And then I think also for us to understand where those funds are coming from, as far as does that bite into our contingency funds, or how is that affecting us as well? So we'll go ahead and pose those questions and send those in, and then we'll put this on as old business for the next meeting. Just make sure, board members, you guys take the time to ask those questions, get those answers, and then hopefully we'll be able to get it out to them as quickly as possible. So, okay, I see heads nodding, so I think we're all in agreement. That's what we'll do for the next one. All right, thank you for providing that info. We had no new business or other business. So before we adjourn, was there anything else as I'm looking at the group here?
I would just want to pop in and just my deep thanks to all of you. Esperanza and LJ, I know that finals is always tough. I think January and February are some of the toughest months of the year. I'm reminded of that every year. It's cold, it's dark. So just, hold on to the hope that the sun will come. And so we'll spring break and we'll all be back together after that. So hang in there. I know having a high schooler myself, that these can be some tough days. So I just deeply appreciate you guys sticking with us as late as it is, especially on finals week, and keep the faith. We'll all get through this.
Agree completely. Thank you guys for sticking with us for this meeting. All right, board members, you all have access to our upcoming meetings, and they should all be, I think at this point, all are on our calendars. So we've got everything accounted for to date. So I will go ahead and adjourn us at